Hello, everyone, and thank you guys for joining us for our Christmas special. As you guys see, we are we're in a festive mood today, and we're just really excited and thankful for the holidays this year. So for today's webinar topic, we're going to be discussing on victims of criminal activity applying for the U visa. And this is different than VAWA. I know we've talked about VAWA before, and sometimes people seem to confuse it. So we're going to go into depth as to why they're different and what they're used for. So a little bit on our managing attorney who is joining us here today. She's been licensed since 2008, founded the firm in November 2009, is a board certified immigration attorney, and is an author on the side. So thank you for all that you do, Attorney Powers. I'll let you take it away with our learning objectives for the day.
Thanks, Dana. So hope you're all enjoying the holidays, and this is a bit of a somber conversation and topic, but we do want to educate the public about this, because what we found through a lot of our screening and consultations that people don't know that they are eligible for this. And another little known fact is that even if the crime happened a long time ago, they might still be eligible. It just depends on the jurisdiction and a lot of different factors and the seriousness of the crime as well, from what my experience. So what is a U visa? What's a qualifying criminal activity? What's the process look like, and filing for family members, and just knowing how many visas are available and what that process looks like. Okay, so, and as we say almost every time, this doesn't take the place of having a consultation with someone to represent you. We also would suggest, and don't take this as legal advice, but we are giving you some information that we think would be valuable. And then it would be great to follow up with a consultation with an experienced immigration attorney. So U visa was, I remember it came out, I think around 2008 or so. So it was around the time I got licensed, and it might have come out earlier, but the regulations didn't come out until around that time. And so it was great, because basically what happened is that, immigrants who might have been victims of a crime, many were afraid to go to law enforcement because they were afraid of possible immigration consequences. And so this was created to open the lines of communication and to make the immigrant community not to be afraid of communicating with law enforcement. And having been on committees where I'm helping out with commissioners or with the police oversight committee and things like that, and having practiced for this long, I'm really grateful that they had the foresight to come out with this program. I would wish they had more visas available, and maybe one day we can get that, but that's aside. So it is set aside for victims of certain crimes who have suffered a mental or physical abuse, okay, and are helpful to law enforcement or government officials in the investigation or prosecution of criminal activity. So that's pretty much the crux of it right there, okay? So eligibility, you're the victim of a qualifying criminal activity. It has to happen here in the US. So, we last week we talked about asylum, and a lot of times people are persecuted in the past in their home country, but we're talking about here in the United States, okay? So you've suffered physical or mental abuse. So how do you demonstrate that? You show that you went to the doctor, you had a report done, psychological, psychiatric, what have you. You were harmed. You can also write about in your statement. Because of being a victim of this criminal activity, that you have information that you can provide. You are available, you are trying to help out the law enforcement, you are trying to help them find that person. For you were helpful, or you are helpful, or can be available and helpful. And so 3 was you have information for your being helpful, okay? And then the last one is it occurred in the US, like I mentioned, and it violated US laws. And so violated US laws could be something that can be a little bit more leeway. So that's something to explore. But for the most part, it occurred in the US, with that small exception. Okay, so if this looks like maybe you or someone qualify for this, then the next thing is to have a consultation. But bring the crime, bring any documentation that you have about that. For example, if so you weren't charged as for a crime, obviously, but a lot of times information might not be on in a criminal record as to who the victim is, for rightfully so for protection and stuff. So you're look for police records to find those things. So a lot of times when a crime happens and you talk to law enforcement, they'll give you a little card or something and say, call this number, this is their report number, things like that. But you need to get the police record, and you need to find out more so that you can learn who was the perpetrator, assailant. Like, you could find out what they were charged with, because that is what's going to help us in this next slide about qualifying criminal activities. So you would need to be a victim of one of these things, which are very somber, serious things here, right? So abduction, abusive sexual contact, blackmail, domestic violence. So domestic violence is one we would do for the U visa if the individual, instead of a VAWA, if the individual that conducted that violence was not a legal permanent resident U.S. citizen or not a spouse, or doesn't somehow meet the qualifications for VAWA. False imprisonment, FGM, felonious assault, hostage, incest, and voluntary servitude. So this could be a possibility, sort of helps give you an option, for T visas have their own, they're being trafficked, but a lot of times there's a combination of involuntary servitude, kidnapping, manslaughter, murder, perjury, prostitution, rape. I mean, as you can see here, trafficking, witness tampering, unlawful criminal restraint, or other related crimes. So maybe the location that you're with, which the state calls it something different, but it's very similar to one of these things, then that could give you grounds to being able to use that. So the ones I'll tell you that I've seen the most are generally domestic violence and felonious assault or aggravated assault. Those are the ones that I've seen the most. We've recently had one for, I think, hostage kidnapping. But for the most part, we need to know what the charge was for the individual that to be able to complete this. So there's basically two parts, right? The first part is you need to go get this certification signed by an authorized individual, an entity. So it's the I-918B. It's a supplement, and it has to be signed by an authorized official or the certifying law enforcement agency. There's a lot of possibilities. There's like judge, detective, police officers, things like that. But I will tell you that it depends on the jurisdiction. So for example, in Harris County, there's one place you email, that place they decide if they're going to go forward with it or not. It's very streamlined. But in some other counties that we've worked with in other states, the law enforcement have no clue what a U visa is, and we have to educate them about it. And it sort of depends on the location. So we've had a lot of experience with different locations, and this just comes with time and experience. So a personal statement describing the criminal activity and evidence establish each of the eligibility requirements. And so if we don't get the certification, then we do not have an application. So that is very critical. A lot of times we just charge solely for the certification is step one. And then we see if it gets signed and approved, boom, we'll go to the next level. So who can be included in this? Certain qualifying members. So the principal must have their petition approved before their family members are eligible for their own derivative U visa. So if you're a principal and you're under 21, you may petition on behalf of your spouse, children, parents, and unmarried siblings under 18. So that's a lot of people. But if you're 21 and up, you can petition on behalf of your spouse and children. And so it's pretty lenient in that respect, and it can give you a pathway to a green card. Now, it's a very long wait. So that's something that you have to know about. So when the visa is granted, it's valid for 4 years. And then you can get extensions. And let me go back for 1 second about something. When you get that certification, I wanted to mention this here. So let's say you have a consult, you have the criminal charge for the person that did the crime, assailant, and then let's say we go ask to get it certified. It gets certified, yay, right? but then it's only good for 6 months. 6 months. So you've got to be ready to rock and roll and file the rest of that. I mean, 6 months seems like a long time, but if you're dealing with COVID, family changes, life hits you, you got to be ready to get ready to file that. And so don't forget that 6 months. That's something to remember. You have to file the rest of the application. That certification can be, I was about to say extinct, but no, expires the word I'm trying to say. And then some locations, they will say they will only give you one certification, like per crime, per in your life or something like that. So you don't want to lose that opportunity. Okay. So generally what's going to happen is that once you've had the U visa for long enough, you're going to apply for your green card. And you don't want to keep extending the U visa status. You're just going to go straight to green card. That's generally what you would want to do. So how many visas are available? There's only 10,000. Can you imagine? In a fiscal year, it starts from October 1st to the end of September of every year. So we are having this at the end of December. So October 1st of 2021, they opened up 10,000 new visas. But the thing is so many people who applied in the backlog, boom, those already were gone. And so there's estimates that we might be waiting up to 8 to 10 years for the U visa. The thing is, it's hard to say because whatever we're seeing get approved at this moment are for people who filed a long time ago. And then the more people apply, obviously, then it's harder to gauge how long. So those are some of the estimates we've been hearing. So there's no cap for family members. So that's great, but for the actual principal petitioner. And if the cap is reached before all the petitions have been adjudicated, USCIS will create a waiting list. They will be granted deferred action or parole, but be eligible to work while they're waiting for the visa to become available. And those who are on the waiting list and those who've received a bona fide determination will receive their visa in order in which it was received, and they do not have to take additional steps to request the visa. So the USCIS knows what they're supposed to do. They have a plan for that. So as we're concluding our brief session on this process, I just want to say one thing. We've often done screenings and consults, like I said in the beginning, and we have found that people were eligible and they didn't know it. And the other great thing about the U visa is that it has so many waivers. It has waivers for removal. It has waivers for false claim to citizenship, waivers for crimes, for entering without inspection in the United States. It has waivers for almost every single thing. So if you might have had a messy background as immigration status, you could probably overcome it if you are eligible for a U visa. And the other thing I want to share is that not only are people eligible and they don't know it, but we recently had a U visa certification signed that was, I think, 14 or 16 years old, the crime that happened. It just was a very heinous crime, but basically we were able to advocate for the client, and we were so grateful that the law enforcement agency signed the certification. So don't give up hope. If the crime that happened to you, you're just learning about this right now and you didn't know about this, then do look into it. It might be possible. Some locations have blanket policies. It can't be beyond, 5 years, 4 years or something, but they might be willing to change their mind, because really there is no law that says that they can't sign it. There's nothing in the regs, nothing that says that it cannot be, that has to be within a certain amount of time. You just have to meet those other requirements we mentioned. So if you have questions, let us know. So Dana, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much for that, Attorney Powers. So again, we're always so happy to provide you guys and be a reliable resource when it comes to immigration topics and concerns. You guys can always follow us on our social media, preferably on our YouTube, as that's where you will find all of our past presentations and any of our short 3-minute videos in which Attorney Powers gives the viewer pointers on either an asylum, interview, all kinds of stuff. We have a segment called Here Are My 3 Tips. So I would suggest you guys check those out. They're really interesting. And if you missed anything, again, you can find them on our Facebook and on our YouTube. We're all on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now on TikTok. So we're really excited to share that with you all and to stay updated on any immigration news. You guys can also subscribe to our newsletter with that neat little QR code there. For our next presentation, we're going to be discussing the employment, immigration, and what you need to know about the H-1B visa. So we're going to be ending the year with a nice employment-based immigration webinar, and we'll be giving out the January presentation topics soon. So we're really excited about that, and we hope to see you all on our webinars. And thank you for joining us. And I hope you all have a fabulous and wonderful Christmas with your family and loved ones, if you do celebrate.
I echo what Dana said. Thank you so much for watching, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we'll